I was looking through my pocket change the other day when I noticed I got one of those fancy new nickels with Thomas Jefferson on it. After seeing it, I started to wonder, why does he get to be on the nickel? Why not some other American legend? How does any man come to have their face on our currency? That's what I've set out to answer today. This is the Numbnuts Show. I'm your host, Numbnuts, and today we'll look at how each of these men in our history became the men on our money, going all the way up to the strangely confusing and convoluted, not to mention insanity-inducing Washington Quarter, but starting, of course, with Lincoln on the penny. Before the penny was minted with Lincoln's face on it, it looked like this. But that all changed in 1909, when Theodore Roosevelt thought, hey, since it's the 100-year anniversary of Lincoln's birth, we should put him on a coin. But not just any coin, the most commonly circulated coin, so Americans will always be reminded of his efforts in preserving the Union. So the mint put him on a coin, the most commonly circulated coin, so Americans will always be reminded of his efforts in preserving the Union. So, with Theodore Roosevelt's efforts evident today, Lincoln's face made it onto the penny, and Lincoln has stayed on the penny to this day. Wait a minute. No! Lincoln, look out! No! The penny was gone too soon. Anyway, today the nickel has Jefferson's face on it. Before Jefferson, we had the famous Buffalo nickel. But the Buffalo nickel wore down easily and had lots of minting errors. So, after being minted for its mandatory 25-year period, the mint wasted no time replacing it. But with what? Well, Roosevelt, the other Roosevelt, president at the time, was a great admirer of Thomas Jefferson, and since the nickel was available, he thought Jefferson ought to be on it. The mint then held an open contest, where the general public could submit their own Jefferson nickel designs, for a chance to win a $1,000 prize, which is about $22,800 in today's money. After looking through the designs, the mint chose this one, done by Felix Schlag. This really has nothing to do with Jefferson or the nickel, but Felix used his prize money to pay for his wife's funeral. But the look of the Jefferson nickel stayed the same until 2004, so I guess we can thank President Roosevelt for giving us the nickel we know and love today. Speaking of Roosevelt, the dime, minted with FDR's profile, didn't look like this until 1946, just a year after FDR died. Which was when the dime still looked like this. But following his death, the American people wanted a monument for the late president. But the Department of Treasury jumped in and said a monument would take too long, and that people should opt for a coin instead. So I guess even back then our attention spans couldn't have been too long. So the American people opted for a coin, the dime specifically, and the reason the dime was chosen was because of Roosevelt's fight against polio and his efforts in finding a cure. During Roosevelt's presidency, there was this fundraiser called March of the Dimes, where Americans could send in dimes in order to help fund the mission of reducing child mortality, and also finding a cure for polio. And it's because of that Roosevelt is on the dime. And with that, we have one major coin left. And if you're looking at this video right now, seeing all this time left and thinking to yourself, oh, maybe he'll talk about the Kennedy half, or the Eisenhower dollar. No, it's all the quarter. I can't believe this coin I once held so dear to my heart would gray my hairs searching for answers. Just look and see. Now we come to the quarter. George Washington is on the quarter, but he was originally meant to be on the half dollar, and only for 1 year. And he was supposed to look like this. But we know Washington stuck around a lot longer than just 1 year. And Washington isn't even on the half dollar. And this isn't even the design they originally used. So, what happened? Well, it all starts in 1924. Calvin Coolidge and some other members created the George Washington Bicentennial Commission. And they said, hey, You know what would be great? Celebrating the 200-year anniversary of George Washington's birthday by running a commemorative one-year edition of the half dollar. Even though the 200-year anniversary wouldn't be until 1932, gotta give the American people something to look forward to, I guess, even if it's 8 years into the future. But anyway, the commission picked a design to put on the quarter, that being the Laura Garden Fraser design, the one that's on the 2022 to 2024 quarters, but that's all for 1924. Let's check back on this commission in 6 years to see all its progress, shall we? So, 6 years later, the commission made no more progress. All they had was the winning design. But Herbert Hoover took over as president of the country, and the head of the commission. Head of the commission. So, after a few years of inactivity, they pitched a bill to Congress, and Congress loved it. So now, with only 2 years left before Washington's 200-year anniversary, all that was left was for Herbert Hoover, as President of the United States, to sign that. He vetoed it. Herbert Hoover vetoed his own bill. The man vetoed his own bill. He said he wouldn't pass it unless they put Washington on the quarter instead, because demand for the 50-cent piece was down during the Depression, and because of all the other commemorative halves at the time, Herbert Hoover didn't want any extra confusion, so Congress changed the bill to put it on the quarter, and Hoover passed it. The second time. Now still, with only 2 years left before the 200-year anniversary, the Mint started prepping to make the one-year commemorative quarter with this design. But it can't be that simple. Through this whole 6-year period, no one thought to check with the Secretary of the Treasury, who was required by law to greenlight the design. So, they showed him the design and asked for his approval, and, well, as Secretary of the Treasury, I must say I am hurt no one asked me about this sooner, but, with no bias whatsoever, I do declare that this design, sculpted by a woman, Laura Garden Fraser, will never do. We need this design, done by my good friend and human man, John Flanagan. So, despite Congress's pleas for the Fraser design, the Mint prepared to start work on the Washington quarter with the Flanagan design, for 1 year and 1 year only. Until...
Hello, it is I, New Jersey Representative Randolph Perkins.
Moly, how many people are involved in this friggin' story?
I am here today, in 1931, asking Congress to make the proposed Washington Quarter the new standard quarter design, as the current Liberty Quarter is unsatisfactory.
So, Congress elected to have the Washington Quarter replace the Liberty Quarter before a single Washington Quarter had ever been minted. But wait, shouldn't we check in with the Secretary of the Treasury, Andrew Mellon? Well, when it came time to mint the things in 1932, it wasn't even Andrew Mellon anymore. It was this guy, Ogden L. Mills. And when Congress tried to get him to switch the design, he said, I don't know, guys. I really don't want to step on Andrew Mellon's toes. Out of respect for him, I will not reverse the decision. He was Secretary of the Treasury at the time. He was well within his right to reverse it, but whatever. After way too many minutes and some odd seconds, you two now know the terribly complicated history behind why Washington is on the quarter. And with that, I need to cool off. Let's recap. Lincoln's on a coin because it was his 100th birthday, and he's on the penny because Theodore Roosevelt wanted him to be on the most common coin. Jefferson's on a coin because FDR wanted to honor him, and they chose the nickel because that's what happened to be available. FDR is on a coin because the American people wanted to honor him, and he's on the dime because of the March of the Dimes. Washington is on a coin because it was his 200th birthday, and he's on the quarter because, well, let's just say Hoover didn't want him to be on the half dollar. Because if I need to cover the quarter anymore, I might just have a heart attack and die. Thank you all for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. If this video does well, maybe I'll make a part 2, talking about the Eisenhower dollar and the Kennedy half, maybe even the dollar bills. But let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.